You might even hear a few myths exploded today. Richard Harvey is the HR manager for Repower Australia, and he's very keen to tell us about the career pathways for the wind energy sector. Would you make welcome Richard Harvey?
Good afternoon. I was thinking that it was going to be pretty hard to follow Merv Hughes, but really it seems even harder to follow Peter Taylor. That seems to be amazing and inspiring work. Just do want to talk to you today about the career pathways in wind industry that I've been working along with various other people in the industry on for the past couple of years, since attending the EEOS conference a couple of years ago on the Gold Coast, where, for those of you who were there, remember we kind of sat on the Gold Coast for a week, enduring, kind of unable to swim because the beaches were off limits and there were storms, and but it was a very enjoyable conference nonetheless. I should also say that yes, it's very good having been a part of some of the community relations activities around building wind farms in Victoria and New South Wales. It's good to be in front of an audience that might have queries about wind energy in regards to its ability to provide baseload power, rather than being faced with audience members getting up and screaming at me about kind of wind turbines producing kind of ubersonic, ultra electro gamma ray waves that are giving them diarrhea, hypertension, diabetes, cancer, and causing their farm animals to have birth defects. Just to start with a little bit about Repower Australia itself. We are a German company founded in 2001 with about sort of 2,500 to 3,000 employees worldwide, and a fully owned subsidiary of Suzlon Energy Limited, which is a very large Indian-based turbine manufacturer and wind farm developer, sort of on the global scale, sort of coming in probably about fourth or fifth in terms of turbine supply globally, behind your sort of real powers in the industry, Vestas, General Electric, and also sort of Siemens up there. Repower itself has installed, getting up towards 4,000 wind turbines globally, and it does go back a little to the mythologies we fight here, that it is frustrating that there's so much wind power in place around the world, particularly in Europe and North America. And for those of you who have been travelled through Northern Europe, you'll find lots of small farms with their own couple, 2 or 3 wind turbines that they've happily been living with for 10 or more years. And that's really where Repower got its start, selling 1 or 2 500 kilowatt to 1 megawatt turbines to farmers in Germany. So there's an awful lot of small wind farms dotted throughout Germany, anything up to kind of 300-400 metres away from the nearest house. So it's a bit of a struggle for us currently with some of the restrictions that are in place. Just before I talk about the qualifications, just wanted to give you an understanding of the expected growth in the industry, particularly as one of the key reasons for being here today is to hopefully attract RTOs to deliver the new qualifications. Now, these are figures that have come from the Clean Energy Council, which is obviously a renewable energy lobby group. And it's fair to say that when I look at them and my colleagues look at them, they're being a little bit optimistic here. We've all seen over the last few days some good news on the policy front, that it looks as if the renewable energy target, or good news for Repower Australia and other turbine manufacturers, that the renewable energy target should remain as it is. And based on that, really the industry would be expecting, probably rather than the nearly 15 gigawatts of supplied wind energy there, probably be expecting around 10 all up. So obviously not all of the proposed wind farms would go ahead, but which gives you really about an extra 7.5 gigawatts of wind energy, probably pretty likely to go in around Australia over the next 5 years. So, which is quite a bit. Still not a high percentage of the total power requirements, but still quite a lot of power. And in regards to training, that is quite a lot of turbines. If we get to 10 gig, we're probably looking at between 5 and 5,500 wind turbines. And at a current ratio of around about 1 technician for every 7 wind turbines you have out on a farm to take care of your scheduled maintenance and fault finding of the machines, you are still looking at a workforce of 750 to 1,000 wind technicians by 2017. So from a pretty low base right now. So there's actually quite a lot of training that goes into producing a wind technician. This slide shows the current wind farms that have been developed by Repower Australia, but I wanted to use this slide just to give you a feel of where the majority of the wind development is likely to take place over the next 4 or 5 years. This little box up here is a little bit higher than probably good geography tells us, because these wind farms up in New South Wales are pretty much all within an hour's drive of Canberra. So we've got the capital and Woodlawn that are essentially on the banks of Lake George within about 40 minutes of Canberra Airport, and Culleran, which is a little bit north of that, just out of Goulburn. But it's really expected that there will be significant growth in the wind industry in essentially New South Wales, kind of ranging from the Hunter all the way down to the kind of southern highlands there. That's where the bulk of the wind energy resources are, and also very good ability to connect to the grid. So just generally around that. And a lot of wind farms currently proposed, particularly in that kind of Goulburn, Yass area, and many of those would be expected to go ahead. Down in Victoria, so we currently have a set of farms. We have the little community farm up at Hepburn, and unfortunately the Baillieu government has kind of knocked that community wind farm model on the head a bit. We also have a small farm down at Wonthaggi, but apart from that, we are really in Western Victoria, and that's where the bulk of the development is going to be. And if you draw a little triangle there, probably, that runs from Ballarat out a bit past Ararat, and then down to Portland, then back to Ballarat, that's really the triangle where the wind energy resource is, and where the great majority of wind farms in Victoria will be built. There's really, it is pretty unfortunate, there's not a lot of wind resource down in eastern Victoria. So you probably, there's only really 1, possibly 2 more farms that are likely to go up down there, just due to they're not viable. Over in South Australia, and this has really been, in South Australia has really been the key to the wind industry's growth in Australia over the past few years. And so Repower Australia has the 6 farms over there, so the large Hallett, AGL Hallett farms, the Clements Gap Wind Farm and Snowtown Wind Farm, which are all very pleasantly placed within an hour's drive of the Clare Valley. So we have no trouble getting our corporate staff to go out there and spend a few days in Clare to wander about the wind farms. And they often seem to bring back a whole lot heavier luggage than they went out there with. So, but South Australia continues to be a very good place to build wind farms. There is a lot of very good wind resource out there. The geography suits, and there's a good enough grid connection there that we'd expect that development to continue. So in regards to what the wind energy industry actually needs in a technician that I talked about before, who does this wind turbine maintenance and also fault finding, what you want is very much, firstly, you want someone who is local. We can't afford to compete on fly in, fly out. We really do want to have local wind technicians because they stay and they care about their farms and they are part of the community, which is really one of the strong stories we have had, particularly in South Australia, where in those number of farms around Clare, we've actually been, and maybe this relates to the point we heard Robin talk about earlier about overtraining, but we have been drawing staff essentially back from Olympic Dam. So we've had a number of guys who have done their apprenticeships as electricians or diesel mechanics up in Olympic Dam, and they are from the small towns in the mid-north and have then, on the basis that they can get well-paid, skilled work back close to the towns that they grew up and want to live in, have come back to work on the wind farms. One of the best stories this year has been the the Crystal Brook Roosters, which is the local football team just down the road from the Clements Gap Wind Farm. And we had 3 of our technicians play in the now back-to-back premierships by Crystal Brook, and 2 of those guys actually trained up at Olympic Dam, and now the wind farm has allowed them to come back and be a part of their community, which has been a really good story for us. But anyway, back to what I was actually talking about. What we're after, not just local, we want electrical and mechanical. And I'll look at a bit of a diagram later on, but actually I can come back to this. If you look at a wind turbine, this is the Repower 3 megawatt land-based version. I don't know, many of you will have a basic understanding of how a wind turbine works. But the point I want to make is that I said there's 2 things a wind farm technician does. The first is they service and maintain, and the second is they fault find. And the point is that the service and maintenance, which is the bulk of their work, is pretty much all mechanical. So you look in this machine, you see it's a whopping great big gearbox in there. So you've got a planetary gear set and a couple of helical gears that run up to about 100-to-1 ratio. You have these machines, these are called yaw drives, and they turn the machine into the wind. So in this particular model, they're little electric motors on top of sets of planetary gears, and you've got more of those out here that actually turn the blades in and out of the wind. You've also, of course, got bearings. So we've got a whopping great big main bearing in here. We've got the yaw bearing, so that's what they call turning around into the wind, down here. And you can imagine from gearboxes sets of planetary gears, bearings, that a lot of the work of the service and maintenance technician is about lubrication and cleaning. Because we need to keep them clean. We've got grease leaking out of bearings because you put a lot of grease in them. Get a little bit of oil, leaks out of the gearbox, leaks onto everything. So a wind technician's job day in, day out is most overwhelmingly about lubrication, cleaning and looking after mechanical components. Okay, but the problem is that when they break down, it's overwhelmingly an electrical problem. So you can also see in there, we've got the generator and we've got in these machines a whopping great big IGBT converter. You'll have a transformer. These will typically pump out maybe 600 volts at 50 hertz, and you'll have a transformer either inside the turbine or just at the base of it that will kick that up to something between sort of 16 and 30 kilovolts, depending on your actual grid requirements where you are. You have a lot of sensors, contactors, just little things that go wrong and require electrical knowledge to fault find. So that's the turbine. So if we go back, it is what we need is both a mix of mechanical and electrical. And what we've done in the past is essentially employ, if we can, half electricians, half mechanical fitters or mechanics. So you can imagine we're high enough off the ground that we also need doggers and riggers. Guys need to be able to rig things up when you've got external cranes and internal cranes being a reasonably regular part of the work that they are doing. So, and some of the specialties that these guys develop after years on the farms can be around high voltage operation, and so both substation switching, but also switching at the transformers in the base of the turbines or nearby. PLCs, as you'd expect, these all have the wind turbines all have sets of PLCs, so a little controller at the bottom of the turbine connected to little control boxes throughout it that are constantly gathering information from a multitude of sensors throughout the turbine and making sure that it continues to run efficiently and smoothly. And SCADA, obviously, when you've got a control box and a whole lot of sensors, you've got reasonably complicated SCADA systems in support of that. And complex electrical gear, which I certainly wasn't introduced as an electrician, so that's pretty much everything in the turbine apart from the gearbox. Looks like complex electrical gear to me, but certainly the newer turbines, or even there are direct drive turbines that are also in place here in Australia, have some very complex, as I said before, IGBTs, converters, big kind of multiple pole or multi-pole generators, particularly for the many pole generators, I should say, for the direct drive versions, that guys can kind of get their head around if they have the capacity and the will to do so. I've put there that women are welcome. I'm not aware of any women currently working in Australia as wind turbine technicians, although we have looked a couple of times. We'd really love to have some women in the industry. So if I can generate any interest just by saying that here today, that would be great. And as I said, the current approach is to employ mostly trades, then train people in turbine maintenance, which has been hideously expensive for us in the past. When I first started in the wind industry, we used to get a guy in from Denmark once a year. He cost us 7,000 euros a day, and plus expenses, and I can tell you he didn't want to fly economy. And strangely enough, his calendar pretty much used to only open up around sort of the Melbourne Grand Prix time. So we were pretty restricted in the turbine maintenance training we could run for our staff. So essentially that was what we were doing, getting tradesmen, giving them restricted electrical licences, allowing them to disconnect and reconnect components that they would be taking out, and doing our own very expensive turbine maintenance training, and of course those other things. So it's not cheap, particularly in terms of man hours, to run people through rigging and dogging, and the many kind of safety awareness courses you need to do when you're dealing with some pretty significant risks around height, high voltage, very heavy components, and kind of adverse weather conditions that you do run up against when you're 80 metres up in the air and in an area that you've kind of selected because the wind blows a lot there. So there has been a very significant training effort put in to get the wind turbine technicians that we currently have, which really did push us to EEOS a couple of years ago, especially when, as some of you will know, there was kind of essentially a shyster running around trying to draw training money for the wind industry and saying he represented the industry at the time. Some of you might have run into Siegfried. And so it became a great requirement that the industry actually did get together and develop some real turbine qualifications. This is basically what we've come up with. If you've got good eyes, you can see right up in the left-hand corner a little JS, August 2011. So this is not a new slide. And if I make any mistakes, John can either correct me or he can change it to reflect the industry view. What we came up with was the 3 levels. So some currently existing Certificate 2s. We're going to write some wind energy units, which now have been written, that could be picked up by those qualifications. Particularly important for us in areas where we were trying to gather community support to build a wind farm. We can go and talk to the local school about them delivering one of these programs in their trade school. And then we go up to having the Cert 3s, and particularly the centre one, the Cert 3 in electrical fitting, which was seen as essentially an apprenticeship we could have on the farm, because while Repower Australia has put 10 apprentices through electrotechnology over the past 4 years, and they're just completing now, all of those kids had to go out and do significant placements with local contractors just to get through their profiling requirements. So the industry was looking for an apprenticeship that they could hold completely on farm, and that is the Certificate 3 in electrical fitting. But there will be some units that I'll show you on the next page that can fit in as electives in any of those Certificate 3s, and then we'll make up a significant amount of electives up for the Certificate 4. There is direct entry at any of these levels because we're certainly expecting we will get good quality mechanical non-trade people that we want to maybe put through an apprenticeship or a Certificate 3. We will get A-grade electrical people or people with a mechanical trade, and we want to bump them up to the Certificate 4, giving them the specific turbine knowledge. So, and we recognise that there's a real need for skill sets, and I talked about earlier some of the specialties that guys might move into. All the ladies, of course, as I mentioned, as they get more experienced. So the units, and sorry, these are not really readable. It was pretty hard to kind of come up with a way that we could put all the units on in some sort of diagram and still have them large enough to read. But you can see there's kind of 2 T's, if you will. So they're 2 distinct groups. I talked before about the difference between the regular scheduled maintenance and the fault-finding troubleshooting. So we've got 2 little groups of units, discrete units, sets of units, one about maintain, so service and maintain, and one about one about diagnose and repair faults. So one of the things, the strong discussions in creating these units was that there's a history in the generation package of service and maintenance alongside operations. Now in this industry we don't really have operations. The turbines just run themselves and we worry about them pretty much only when it's either time to go out there and do your scheduled maintenance or they break down. So, and the breakdowns are a great priority for us because the basic, you would say, way we are held to account by the clients is turbine availability. So generally a wind farm contract that we might enter into with AGL or one of the other wind farm owners will say you must maintain your turbines at greater than 97-98% availability. So it doesn't matter so much, you know, we know wind's going to vary. Some days they're going to spin, some days they aren't, but they must be available all the time for the contracts. So it's very important for the service technicians to be very quick in able to turn around fault finding, to get a turbine running again if it does break down. So most of these have come out as level 4 units. We have some level 3 units down the bottom, and the central one of those is the maintain large-scale wind turbine generators, which is essentially a unit that will cover the servicing and the basic servicing and maintenance of wind turbines. But then we move up into the level 4 units, which are about maintaining turbine control systems, mechanical systems, and electrical systems. So you can certainly see there how we have split the work, knowing that that we have, you know, that's just one way to split it, and it's the best way we could come up with. That we know these are quite separate bits, and when you get up to the higher level diagnose and repair units, they're split the same way. That we have a generic diagnose and repair faults, and then we have diagnose repair faults in control systems, electrical systems and mechanical systems. So, in regards to the opportunities for RTOs, unless John will tell me different, I will say that these qualifications are going to be live next year, and so they're in the package. You won't find them on training.gov just yet, but we've certainly tried to hit all the time frames provided to us to get them happening next year. And what we're really looking for is RTOs in those regions that I showed before to partner with the industry to get these qualifications delivered. Now, there's various difficulties with that. Firstly, there's not a great number of RTOs that can give you electrical, mechanical, rigging and dogging, high voltage, and any other thing we might, working at heights, rescue at heights, vertical rescue, ladder rescue. It's not going to be easy to find RTOs who are able to do all of that. And from my understanding also, there's very few RTOs that could right now deliver you a course on maintain a large-scale wind generator. So this is not going to be a simple process. And at this stage, we're probably thinking that partnering with TAFEs will be what we'll have to do. And we'll be wanting to do that with, wherever possible, regional TAFEs, particularly in regards to doing apprenticeships. Because our last lot of apprentices, we sent them off all over the country to work on turbine installation and maintenance, and then for 1 week in 4 we shipped them all back to Melbourne, put them up for a week to do their trade training. And we'd really prefer not to have that cost. We'd like our apprentices in these regions to be able to, okay, then one day a week or 1 week in 4 just to drive somewhere, no more than kind of an hour and a half to do their trade training each day. So that means, as I said before, in that Western Victoria, in that South Australia, kind of around Clare, the York Peninsula, and up in New South Wales, around Goulburn, probably going to be the centre of it, is where we'd be hoping to kind of partner with RTOs who can work to deliver as much of this qualification as we can. It would also be an expectation for those actual wind units, so the technical units around service and maintain and then fault find, that the turbine manufacturers themselves would actually keep control of the content of those courses and merely partner with RTOs to assure the assessment was up to scratch. It's not an industry that is particularly open at all about its technology, because it is very competitive. It is a very competitive industry, particularly over the next 4 or 5 years, and there's just no way. And even to get to this stage, we've had to have a lot of kind of calm and reasonable discussions with turbine manufacturers about, no, this doesn't mean you'll be handing over any technical IP or anything like that. There'll be no need to do that. And we've had to reassure them that you will be able to maintain control of your IP and still deliver your own internal technical training, but it may need to be up to the standards required by the National Training System, and your assessment will need to be overseen by an RTO that is qualified to do so. So yes, so we'll be looking obviously at RPL for the probably 200 or 300 wind technicians that we've currently got running about the place in Australia. We'll be hoping for regional apprenticeships. We'll be hoping to work with RTOs to deliver the skill sets, which haven't really been finalised, but you can expect them to be high voltage, safety, perhaps rigging and dogging, and certainly SCADA and electrical fault finding that we'll be expecting to, as we bring tradesmen in, particularly electrical tradesmen, we're expecting to give them the various skill sets just to align their skills with our requirements. And yeah, that last one I've really covered, which is about working with the industry to deliver and assess the more technical units. So I hope I've made sense with this, and I hope I'm reasonably at the time, Phil. Just a bit over. All right. I'm sorry. Well, I did actually say to Ross that I could talk half the day if he wanted me to, but he seems to have only given me 25 minutes. But I'm happy to take questions.
First, you're happy to take a bottle of wine?
Oh, I'm very happy to take a bottle of wine.
Thank you, Richard. Well, we are right on afternoon tea time. It just depends how much you want to eat into your afternoon tea. Does they have any questions? No pressure. Does someone like to ask a question of Richard? Well, we have a few. So.
Norm Carl, New South Wales Utilities ITAP. Have there been any discussions yet with RTOs in regard to this? Because you're talking about Goulburn, and New South Wales closed Goulburn TAFE down in the electrical department. We're having great difficulties in working with the institute that's in that area. If you can convince somebody to allow Canberra to deliver it, you might have a chance in that area, but have there been any discussions with them yet?
Certainly not up in New South Wales. I'd welcome the opportunity to have a chat to you about how we might push that forward. We have been working, doing some initial work with TAFE SA through Mount Gambier TAFE, but really haven't progressed at all in New South Wales and Victoria. And to tell you the truth, kind of coming here today was kind of the point at which we really wanted to kick that off. So.
Okay, just in the middle of the room here. Yep. Someone else who's got the microphone. Here we go. Yeah. Yep.
I'd just like to say on behalf...
Sorry. Just you're next. This one. This chap here.
Sorry about that.
It's all right. Steve Beaton, University of Ballarat. I'm just wondering what strategies you've got in place for enabling your apprentices to gain their Certificate 3 in regards to fulfilling their profiling requirements.
You mean for the electrical fitting qualification?
No, the electrotechnology, the
Well,
807 or 811 was going to be.
Yeah, we have gone through that, and it was just about placements, 8, 12, 15-week placements with local electrical contractors. So it wasn't a great strategy because we essentially had to pay their wages while they worked for somebody else. It got us a bit of goodwill in the community, local community. The contractors liked it, but it is one of the reasons why we're hopeful that we can interest people in the electrical fitter qualification to allow us to actually have a qualification where all of the profiling requirements can be taken care of with the actual on-site work.
Okay, we'll take this question over here and then we must finish. Yep.
I just wanted to say on behalf of TAFE New South Wales, and I'll give you my business card, that we are very interested and very committed to provide the training that you require.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There you go. If you do have some other things to discuss with Richard, please do it at afternoon tea, and particularly if you're from an RTO, I'm sure he'd be very, very pleased to talk to you. Would you once again thank Richard Harvey?